McDonald's is out with yet another warning that the consumer is slowing down. They're quickly running out of cash for things like fast food. And why do we care what the consumer is doing? Why do we care how much people are going to McDonald's or spending at McDonald's? Because it might be one tea leaf that we can look at to say, is the economy heading into a recession? If you get the consumer right, you'll likely get the economy right, because the consumer, all of us, represent 70% of the US's economy. So as we slow down, so does the economy. And so in today's video, I'm going to share with you what McDonald's is warning about, and more importantly, what we all should think about doing based on this information. So let's jump in. CNBC has an article out. McDonald's executives admit diners think prices are too high. And amid a broader consumer pullback in increasing prices, fast food chains have had a difficult time drawing in lower income consumers. That's going to be a key point in this. The company's $5 value menu is working for them. And if you like their $5 value menu, I have good news for you later in the article. But during the company's second quarter call, the executive said they're taking a forensic approach to evaluating prices and trying to create value. Notice that forensic approach is in quotes. I think it's interesting that they use that phrase, because forensic means criminal science. So I don't know if they think we're all McBurglars or what, but I found it an interesting choice of words. As consumers pull back amid increasing prices, right? We've seen this inflation. Fast food chains have had a difficult time, again, drawing in lower income consumers. More than 60% of respondents to a Lending Tree survey said that they've cut back on their fast food spending because of the costs. And I think we're all seeing that. I mean, mea culpa. I'm not a frequent user of McDonald's, but occasionally. But it's not a low-cost treat anymore, that's for sure. McDonald's executives on the earnings call said that the lower income diners have not been moving out of the chain for other fast food restaurants, but instead have been eating out on the whole less frequently across the globe. And the company saw pullback not just in the US, but globally, particularly families in Europe. Now, Europe's important too, because the US going into a recession is one thing, but the whole world going into a recession is quite another thing. So they're seeing this pullback not just in the US, but in Europe. Okay, so what's the good news? Is there any good news in this? According to an article by Axios, the McDonald's $5 meal deal is causing a notable bump in their customers, how many people are going. Big picture, McDonald's said the $5 deal drove a 3% increase in guest counts and has been profitable in 96% of the restaurants. That was one of the critiques of the $5 meal is, yes, it's more of a value, but the franchisees weren't making any money. I suspect they're still not making much money on this. It's profitable, but probably not much. If you haven't done the $5 meal, I recently came across a homeless person. I prefer not to give money to homeless people. I'd rather give them food. So I ran across the street to McDonald's, bought the $5 meal, and I was surprised how much was in it, and gave it to the homeless guy. And he was quite impressed with his $5 meal. So Axios articles goes on to say, McDonald's has seen a notable shift in guest counts, which is a good thing, but $5 and it's not profitable for them. So the high level takeaway from a fact standpoint is the consumer is slowing down. But what I want to point out is what McDonald's is doing, and this is what companies do, right? They have bad things happen. We all have speed bumps in our lives. Companies have speed bumps in their lives. And so they react to it. They're not just victims and saying, okay, the economy is slowing down, but they're reacting to it. So, that's a good thing, and it's a good thing in our lives when we react to things that are happening to put ourselves in a better position, which is where I'm going to go. What do we do to put ourselves and to position ourselves if a recession is happening? But before I go there, I want to share that clearly consumers are slowing down. I've seen it in my life. I've seen it in the lives of my friends. And we're running out of cash. We're running out of extra money at the end of the month. The median household income in the United States is $75,000 a year. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median average household spends almost $80,000 a year, $78,000 a year. So there's not a lot of slush in our accounts. So what do we do? First, if you're like half of Americans that aren't saving anything, I really encourage you, even though it's difficult to do it, it doesn't matter how much we earn when we're trying to prepare for a secure retirement. It matters how much we can save and invest. So do what you can. I know it's more difficult now than it was before the pandemic because of inflation, but do what you can. And one of the things I recommend, I know it's aspirational, but I recommend 50, 30, 20. 50% of your take-home pay goes to your needs, things like your rent or your mortgage payment, your utilities, your groceries to eat at home, gas for your car, things like that. 50% goes to needs, 30% goes to wants, things like going to McDonald's or going to a nice restaurant or on a nice vacation, or the cardboard boxes that show up at our house. If we can keep that to 30%, that leaves 20% that we can save. Now, I know it's hard to do that, but that's step number one. But let's go back to this point about a recession. Are we heading into a recession? Are we already in a recession? And for your investments, what should we do with that? There was recently a report by Bank of America, an analyst by the name of Michael Hartnett, who's very well respected. He did a study showing the interest rate cuts. We're all, as I record this, we're waiting for the Fed to cut interest rates. Many people are really looking forward to that. But as the old adage goes, be careful what you wish for. And Michael Hartnett at Bank of America did this study where he looked at central banks like the Federal Open Markets Committee is its official name. Here in the United States, that's our central bank. But he looked at it globally. And he said, unfortunately, when rates are cut, it's because the central banks have access to information you and I don't have. And now they're trying to stimulate the economy. And it may be too late for the Fed to do what we're all hoping to do, which is a nice soft landing and to avoid a recession. That typically doesn't happen. It's really hard to make that happen. And it may be too late now. We've had high rates now for a long time. And while professional money managers are only attributing a little more than a 10% likelihood of a recession, I think we all feel in our guts that the likelihood of a recession is higher than that. So Hartnett's study shows when the central banks start cutting rates, particularly if there's a lot of rate cuts and they're aggressive, unfortunately, that usually means that a recession is coming. And you can see 2008, 2009 here, May of 2020 when COVID was first beginning, in July of 2024, which is where we're at now, there's already been 35 cuts. And interestingly, there's a rule in economics that was developed by Claudia Sam. And she says once unemployment increases from its low by 0.5%, it's a good indicator that we're already in a recession. It's not a leading indicator. It doesn't predict one, but it says you're currently in one. And you can see here the gray vertical lines, those are the recessions. You can see the spike in the unemployment rates, and it's got a really good history. But here we are at the very end. I want you to look at it, July of 2024. What is it? 0.53, and officially her rule is 0.5. So what do you do? All right, the Sam rule would say it's likely we're already in a recession. We very well may be. So what do we do? Unfortunately or fortunately, it's time in the market, not timing the market, that helps all of us succeed. It's tempting to think that we can predict a recession. It's tempting that we can pull out of the market before the stock market goes down and we can get back in. But I can tell you, study after study after study says nobody can do that. It's just too hard to do that. So the average person, we're much better off picking a long-term asset allocation, what percent of our portfolios in stocks, what percent's in bonds, and sticking with that through good times and bad times. And if your asset allocation is not right, as you're watching this video, if maybe you're too much in stocks, now's the time to look at that And to make those tweaks to the correct asset allocation before the stock market has a 20, 30, 40% correction, because what you're trying to avoid doing is being a forced seller in a down market. And typically people become forced sellers in a down market because either the mental pain of the market correcting is too great and they want the pain to stop. It's gone past worrying and it's angst. You can't sleep at night. It's top of mind all the time. And then people sell to make that pain go away. And unfortunately, that warm, comfortable relief feeling is usually pretty short-lived for people. And then, unfortunately, that can cause long-term damage to your portfolio results. So that's one reason people become forced sellers. The other reason is if you need the money, if you're already retired, if you have a major purchase coming up. So think about your asset allocation. Think about when you need money and try to avoid being a forced seller in a down market. Okay, that's it for this video. YouTube thinks you'll enjoy this video up here. The algorithm says you'll enjoy this video here. So click on it. Let me know if YouTube did a good job, if it's a good video for you. Bye-bye.